so, welcome, this is the Planning and Development Committee meeting.
Oh, you're good, I'm just gonna turn on the additional
okay.
sound.
Probably not
We
right.
learned last night when it's not everybody in here, it's hard to hear.
It's harder to hear. All right, so, I'm just gonna call the meeting to order with, Carla Grant and Justin Booth, the other members of the committee in attendance. So, we're just gonna jump right in, if that's okay with everybody.
How about it, Ms. Chairman?
All right, so one of the things that we're going to talk about this evening is the vacant property registration, and creating, some additions to the code. So we've been talking in council about vacant property registration fees. There is a code currently in existence that requires properties to be registered. Council is, looking to add a fee to that. And with that fee, one of the things, we also want to add though is exemptions to that. So one of the things that I'd like to propose that we consider tonight is an exemption process where you would fill out an application and you would also pay a fee of $50 for that exemption. And then exemptions to add to the code would be abandoned residential properties that are pending foreclosure, properties that part of an estate undergoing probate and not subject to bankruptcy, provided that there is an administrator or executor of the estate in a contiguous county. Rental properties that are actively being marketed for rental. My question on that one is, do you think we should have a time limit? Like, so for 6 months, so it's not like somebody says, oh, my property's for rent, but then they never actually rent it.
Right, that, I think that would be, so you're going annually on the other, the fees.
Yes.
So, I don't know if maybe with.
Or should it be 12 months?
I think it should be 12
Okay,
months, yeah.
so for 12, okay.
Thank you for being more eloquent than I was.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I'm just a dumb person.
So a building which has suffered fire damage or damage caused by extreme weather conditions would be exempt for a period of 90 days, after, the fire or extreme weather condition, provided that the property owner submits, the request for the exemption and a statement of their intent to repair the property.
So would they have to pay the exemption fee as well?
They would have to pay the exemption fee as well.
Well, I think it's
Okay.
right to pay an exemption fee when your house is
Okay.
burnt.
Right, that
So-
was my thought as well.
All right, so see, this is, okay.
Elizabeth just dragging money.
Listen, no, these are just proposals looking at other, I benchmarked probably 10 other cities and looked at what they were doing. So a building that is listed for sale with a licensed state of Ohio realtor would be exempted for a period of 6 months from the start of vacancy, provided that the owner submits proof to the code enforcement officer of such listing, and the sale status, and also, so it must be listed in the MLS. It can't be a for sale by owner type situation. Again, kind of that same thing, like, are they really trying to sell it? Okay.
I don't, I mean, if you're trying to sell your house, you shouldn't have to pay a fee.
Mm-hmm. And so exempt from the fee, but.
Just have to be listed with, you just can't throw a sign up out front and say, well, I'm sorry, I'm exempt, I'm trying to sell my house, and, you know, use it as a workaround. So basically, they'd be exempt if they're selling it with a realtor.
Well, that's almost like punishing people for not wanting a realtor.
I agree, but, okay, so.
So what's stopping from just sticking a sign up on?
Exactly.
For sale by owner.
And that was- that's
And
my thought.
the house is falling
There
in.
should be, well,
Right.
but then again, you're picking on the bad apples and punishing everyone else along with the bad apples.
Yeah.
But what if, so here's my thing though, what if it's a property that is derelict, right? It has issues, it has weeds, it's falling in,
Well, that
it's
should go
attracting
under-
bankruptcy, but I have a for sale sign.
That should go more under code for discretion, where we do have the discretion line in there.
Okay.
I mean, I understand your point, it's just, and we do have people like that, but then again, you're punishing everyone for what some people choose to do. So.
Could
Just
you
bring
do-
everybody up to the same standards.
That could
Yeah, I
be-
kinda,
You can do it for sale by owner and still list it in the MLS. So I
Okay.
think if you just left it as MLS.
There
then
must be in the
Let the
MLS.
realtor out.
That's,
it's
yeah,
a multi-listing service,
it's where all the houses that go for sale are listed,
So if you,
officially listed.
so like if you go to
So that's different
realtor,
than a realtor.
yes.
yes.
Okay, I don't know what that is.
So if you go on like realtor.com, if you list your house in the MLS, it'll show up
You can
But
actually go search for Athens
you
County.
can
and
actually
it'll
search
bring
for
up
it.
It'll bring up a website with all the properties for sale in Athens County.
And it's not just like me putting a hand-painted sign in my front yard saying for sale by owner when I
Okay.
have no intent on selling it.
Yeah,
Do you
just-
think 6 months is enough though to sell a home, or?
That's just the standard listing on the MLS, I believe.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's the point, is we're giving them an exemption,
But they have.
but then after that, they'll have to register it as a vacant property.
So they've got 6 months to be exempt to sell their house before the vacant property.
Before they have to
starts
register it.
Kicking in.
And if your house doesn't sell, then you're gonna have to pay in hundreds, so you gotta pay 50 for the exemption, and then 100 if you don't sell it.
So there would be no, they would not have to pay, if it's listed for sale, similarly like the fire code. I thought we were saying that we wouldn't make them pay the exemption fee
That was the way I understood it, so
if
6
it was
months.
for sale.
So if you've got your house for sale for 6 months and it sells in 5 months and 30 days, you haven't paid anything.
Okay. So you're taking away the $50 if it sells in 50 and
Yeah.
60.
Right, but on that
And
6 months, that's when things.
Also,
kick
and
in.
I should have said that, and I think I put it someplace else, you pay the exemption for $50. If any of these things you get kicked out and you have to then, you know, it's like the fire, so you then have to pay, or that's not a good one. But let's say, it's, okay, hold on, we'll get to it. Like something else, then they pay the $50 and then later they have to register it. That $50 could get in that first year, we get applied to the $100, yeah.
So we're gonna take out the realtor specifications?
Yeah, I can take that. Okay, but must be listed in the MLS.
Must be in the MLS,
And they must
yeah.
show proof of that.
Yeah, which you can just go on the website
Right.
and find that out pretty easily.
So, there's a single-family home or owner-occupied two-family dwelling that has been used as a residence for at least 90 days in the past 270 days, and the owner intends to come back and live there again. So this might be a snowbird, let's say he went to Florida, and let's say they broke a hip when they were there, so their stay gets extended, you know. And they intend to come back, but like they've been delayed
Yeah, as long as the
for
house-
some reason,
As long as
right?
the house is kept, that's all we're
Yeah,
looking for.
right. So a building under active construction, renovation, restoration, where a building plan has been submitted to the code enforcement officer. Again, but not, I think that's, let's see, but not later, than 1 year. So, and I think we were just talking about this, so the city does not currently have any kind of building permitting process.
Mhm.
So, there's, like, in a lot of cities, goes back to, like, when your building permit would expire, you know, when that first, building permit would expire or whatever. We don't have that, it could be tied to it. But it would give you, let's say you bought a home or a property, you intend to restore it, which is what we want, that's the whole point of this, is to save homes, save properties versus, you would have a year leeway basically,
For your vacant property to be
before it
sold.
would be considered a vacant property.
Right.
And that you would have to show the code enforcement officer that you have a plan
Mhm.
for doing this, for restoring it, and that, let's say in a year, they wanted, I'm just thinking ahead, they want another exemption, they would have to prove that they've made progress.
Right.
Like
They just-
significant, like a year's worth of progress on it, and not like, we tore out all the walls, but have done nothing else
Right.
inside.
And we currently do that with our zoning permit now. It's on there to get an extension another 12 months pretty
Mhm.
easily. So that would be a very familiar process with some already existing processes.
Okay.
Cool.
So another exemption would be any building that's owned by the land bank. And then the last thing was, any owner of a vacant property could request an exemption for other reasons, from the city code. by filing an application with the code enforcement officer, understanding that the code enforcement officer could consider the applicant's prior record as it pertains to city housing code, building code, or property maintenance code violations, the amount of vacant property that that applicant already has in the city, and the length of time that the building for which the exception is sought has been vacant. So that would allow Becky to have discretion over somebody asking for an exemption. But if it's, let's say it's someone that owns multiple properties in town, and she's constantly issuing citations for, not keeping it up, not mowing, trash, those things, then she could use that and to say, no, you don't get an exemption.
So if I've got a house that I'm marketing for rent for 6 months and my exemption comes up and I'm actively trying to,
Yeah.
and that 6 months comes up and I've done everything right, I can go back and talk to Becky, apply for an
Another
extension
6 months,
basically.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, this clause gives her the discretion, but we're outlining some things that are like understood, to be an exemption.
Mhm.
So, where this says exemptions, it says an exemption form has a $50 fee.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean the land bank's gonna have to pay a $50 fee?
No. See, that fee thing I added, that was like a late thought this afternoon, so probably not.
Okay. It's like-
I guess I was just thinking like people,
Good luck getting that one.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So maybe the exemption, to me, I was just trying to think, okay, but should we make them, if we're making a building, someone who's registering their property pay $100 fee, if you request an exemption, should you still also have to pay a fee? I mean, we can,
Well, I think you're looking at exemptions for people that are actively working towards making it better.
Mhm.
Right.
So that's the only reason they'd be applying for an exemption, because you're actively trying to make it better.
Right, I'm not sure.
So.
I'm not sure of the fees.
okay, so again, that was just, like I said, that was just a late idea this afternoon that popped in my head, like, oh, maybe we should make them.
Yeah,
pay a
so I
fee
can see
too,
people saying,
but-
wait a second, I'm getting an exemption, but I still have to pay, how's that work?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, but I think for the people that
Okay,
are doing things
so-
right, maybe we ought to think about
Again,
changing
If
that.
you're doing things wrong, they just don't get the exemption.
yeah.
Yep, that's it, and then
I
they
think
pay
that's
from
it.
day one.
Okay, so
Yeah.
killing the exemption fee, all
Mhm.
right, that makes it a little cleaner,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And honestly, I think
I was
that'll
trying to help out.
that'll make people more apt to come forward and register their properties as well.
Yes,
Because if Becky finds that there,
Mhm.
and that's one of the things I wanted to mention too, that evidence of vacancy, she finds she's got, abandoned properties out there, or things that are vacant, hey, it's Katie bar the door at that point.
mhm,
You get charged from day one,
yeah.
so. But yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I think to me, it's always nicer to have, to kind of think ahead about what people are going to say, well, I'm doing this, I shouldn't have to register my property.
Right.
So to me, though, you still, for an exemption, there's still gonna be a form that you complete to get the exemption, so there's still an application. You just aren't paying.
Right. I know if I owned
The
properties,
fee.
I would be more
Yeah.
apt to step forward and come and say, hey, here's my vacant properties, get me registered, because I don't want to be in trouble 6 months from now.
And honestly, like, part of this was like, I wanna make Becky's job as our code enforcement officer a little easier, so she's not, having to, like, negotiate with people all the time about, like, what they're doing, what their intent is.
And I think it kind of jives with, like she talks about her job being a consultative thing.
Mhm.
Hey, let's get this fixed rather than being punitive about things. I think
Yeah.
And
a
that's
good
the
thing.
end game, at least everything, from my perspective, it's not to fine people or charge people money, it's just
Right.
to nudge people along to, clean up their properties, make
Mhm.
their
Do the right
house.
thing.
It's an attempt to clean the city up.
Yep.
Yeah,
Not, it's not a moneymaker,
Nope.
it's just to
Right.
hopefully turn things around. One step,
Well spoken, Mr. City Manager.
Lord Fogg.
yeah. Are you contemplating something, Mr.
No, no,
Chairman? Okay.
No,
I think you're just thinking about how good he
All
looks
right.
in shorts.
Yeah. Thinking about his hands fading.
Black down, spread in front of the camera.
Please, I think that would be very popular.
I don't wanna rush and win and come back.
So Justin, you said that you had some other things that you think
Yeah.
maybe we should consider adding to that whole code, that
And-
whole vacant property code.
And I know you scoured Google twice,
I have.
so, these are my humble.
No, yeah.
My
Thanks.
humble thoughts.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought of, it might be a good idea to add to the code. Beaver Creek has a clause in their ordinance about evidence of vacancy, so if their code enforcement comes along and finds a house that's not registered, that has, overgrown grass, doesn't look like anyone's living there, broken windows, old newspapers laying around, garbage, all that kind of stuff. I think that should be something that, she could automatically just, boom, put that into the program and start, start the process of, hey, this is a vacant property that's not registered. So I think that's something we could really spell out in the code.
I think you could tie that
in the
back
process.
to, right, to like city utilities, so sewer, water.
Absolutely.
If there's no sewer or water hookup at all, or if it went from, I don't look at my water bill, so I don't know, I'm so sorry.
I
Like,
just
how
don't-
many gallons does like a typical person use?
2,000. I think it's the minimum, isn't it, 2,000?
Somewhere right around there.
So let's say the house goes from 5,000 gallons a month to, the minimum for, because you're gonna get charged for 2,000 no matter what, right? On
So
your
the
bill.
minimum bills usually, so we look at minimum bills now as to why are they minimum? Are some people just using that amount of water? Absolutely, and that's no problem at all.
Mhm.
It also indicates dead meters. Chances are, if that building's abandoned, they're probably not gonna pay their water bill anyway. So right now, I know when Becky goes around and makes her condemnation list, and prioritizes, usually the number one indicator is no water or sewer.
Mhm.
And then from there, then she evaluates further, coming
Yeah.
up with a recommendation.
So maybe it's not
Well, wouldn't
something-
you have to get a hold of the property owner though, before you actually start anything,
I don't know if, you can send out your notices, your certified letters, things like that, but if they're not responsive, then that should.
Well, yeah,
that
I
should
mean,
extend the
try.
cloud form. Right, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I just think it should
Yeah,
start
so
the
there's a
process.
procedure for that as well, so they do send out, they try to notify the owner before condemnation anyhow, and that, a lot of these times, you'll find a lot of these houses that are abandoned, you got meth heads, homeless people living in there, I can say meth heads, living in there with no water, no sewer, and once you walk through one of those places that has that, you'll realize why how important that is.
It smells like death.
Because they're going to the bathroom somewhere,
Yep.
Yeah.
and it's horrible. So, people don't need to be living like that anyhow.
It sounds like we've got that in process
Places
already.
out there
so-
they can go for help, if they choose to do it this way.
So I've got another question. When Becky goes out to check these houses, and maybe it's something, maybe it's a code thing, maybe it's just a process thing, would it be a good idea, maybe she's doing this already, and I'll apologize to her when I see her next, does she go out and do a walk around of the house, take pictures, things like that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
So Becky has files upon files upon files of pictures of houses and everything else, and she has a whole case file on all of them, so much that we had to have a chat about the amount of printing, so we started doing it digitally.
Yeah,
So,
digital would be good, yeah.
Just because those prints get expensive?
Yes, because if her printing's anything like her reports,
Yes, it's very thorough. It's not, Becky, if you're listening,
It's-
we love you,
yeah.
Becky.
yes. So, yes, because she has tons of pictures. She loads them all into iWorks, the software that she has. If you folks ever come to Mayor's Court and observe, that's what she pulls up, is the case file, and everything associated with that address is there.
Beautiful.
Perfect. Okay. So, anything else you
That's
have?
all I've got.
Okay,
Otherwise, I'm good as is.
okay. What do you think, Carla?
I'm good.
Okay, I think it's just to make the whole process run smoother. That's what it's about for me, and to ultimately make Becky's job easier, and more,
Well, to make people
yeah.
willing to keep their properties up and not
Mhm.
browbeat them about it.
Right.
Yeah, we're
But
not
to
like
make
Scott
sure
said.
they do start doing something.
Exactly, to hold them accountable, to make sure that they're
Yeah.
keeping up their property,
And-
but without saying, hey, we're gonna take all your money. Yeah, that's not what we're here for either.
And ultimately, what we want is, we want these properties to be saved and maintained and restored, refurbished. We have some really gems, of houses in this town that if we just let them sit and rot for, 15 years, as some of them have been, then we're gonna end up with a bunch of vacant lots.
Yep.
Which is not what we want. We want cute little houses that, you know, maintain
We
their
would
historic
like
charm.
families to come back in. and start
Yes,
buying homes.
absolutely.
Well, especially as, you know.
Need more homeowners in this.
Places
Yes,
like Columbus,
less renters,
the
more
sprawl,
homeowners.
I mean, you know, with all the, you know, the bypass around Lancaster and all that, Nelsonville's a prime spot for maybe, being a bedroom community to
Yeah.
commuters.
There actually is something I thought of that I had thought of a year or two ago, but I just, maybe you guys can help, because I can't really think how to do it, because we can't really like have the city being responsible or anything, but there's so many people that want to do like painting, mowing, yard work, electric, all this, and they just have no idea who to call, or they can't find anyone. So I was wanting to try to compose a list that people could, but then again, we can't say, you know, like, this is what the city recommends, you know,
Could we have
I
like
don't
a
know how to do it
registry or something like that?
without being responsible for it.
Yeah,
So-
cause,
Yeah, we
well, the
can't-
bad part about that though, is
They do it bad
when
time.
you do list somebody, they're gonna go, let's just see, told me to call.
Right, that's what I mean, that's why I
Yeah,
haven't brought it up
it's-
anymore,
right.
but we got some new faces, maybe you guys will have some new ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the legalities to be, but I mean, if a business wanted to come along and say, hey, Mr. Frank, I wanna be on the city website under the registry, and, you know, the city puts out and says, hey, you know, we're not responsible, these are just people who have, you know, business licenses.
Yeah, and I
along
think
and
they
wanna
should
do that work.
register to see when they do have a business, and I think.
Well, there you go.
That's a
We
really
gotta be
lovely
careful.
segue.
We
I was totally gonna do it for you. That's number 3 bullet point right there, cause we could put all the registered businesses on the website.
There you go.
But
Yeah.
I'll let you kick it
But
off
we
from
still
there.
don't want to be like recommending them. or
No,
anything.
No, it just says-
you can
Just a register.
You
Yeah.
can click on the website and say,
So
hey, these
funny.
are all the businesses who have registered in the city of Nelsonville, use them at your own risk, because this is where we stop.
So ironically,
Buy local.
that's actually, the next agenda item is business license registration. Which has been brought up to me, as something that's needed,
Is there a
so-
process now?
They buy it
Yes.
once.
Kind of, but only for
Oh, it's a
certain
lifetime
kinds.
thing.
Yeah.
And only for certain kinds of businesses, cause I read the code, and maybe I'm wrong, I scoured the code, trying to figure this out. And from what I'm seeing, like, if you're a vendor or a transient vendor, if you're a taxi cab, if you're a contractor, and I'm sorry, I know that there aren't probably, we have very few contractors registering with this, but registered with the
No,
city?
not registered.
They're supposed to be registering, it's in the
All
code.
the main ones are registered in town.
Huh?
All the main ones in town working now are registered.
Okay.
Taylor and I browbeat them at their meetings.
Yeah, so, one of the
Those are
things
big boys.
that's been brought up is a business, business license registration, basically, and for a couple of reasons. One, to help, track what businesses are in town, right? So COVID's happened right now. Do we know what's still operating, what's not operating, what's shut down permanently, are things shut down temporarily? Also to make sure that, like, income tax is being collected, and processed properly for businesses. You know, cause it's not fair for certain people to be operating their businesses the right way and paying income tax, and other people not to be. So this is kind of a very preliminary conversation, because I have not had a lot of time to dig into this. But the feeling is that we do need some kind of registration process, because right now, I mean, I talked to my sister who's a business owner, and I asked her, like, have you ever registered? And she's like, maybe a few years ago, like, we had to, but it was kind of a one-time thing. It's not annual,
Right.
it's not
It's not
it's
a
not
process.
consistent, it's not really a process. So I guess that's
Don't we
something.
have the planning commission though looking into the fees, and that was one of the fees, cause it's one time instead of every year, I thought they.
Well, so what's interesting to me, and Dan, maybe you remember, I mean, so this is like in the code, Title 11 Business Regulations, one of the things is, you know, so the contractor registration is like a whole chapter unto itself, and then licenses and permits. And it lists certain kinds of things that you're supposed to do annually, like if you were an auctioneer, or,
I think the businesses were just once, and we wanted to change it to every
Yeah.
year instead of, they've been here 20 years and they paid like $100 20 years ago.
Mhm.
Right.
yeah. So I was like, I feel like we need to do a little research into this, again, benchmark what other cities do. Audience participation?
So I've traveled across this country, have done work in airports, malls, all across the country. In every city I've been into, I've had to register for a company and
Mhm.
do business in that city, but also, I've also opened up a lot of, as I build them, you know, I'm also there for the opening and helping them get through some of that stuff. And, they have to go to that city and purchase a business license. And some cities are annual, some cities are every 2 years. But it's always displayed behind the counter
Mhm.
of their business name, the license number issued by the city, and it's paid for every year or every 2 years. You know, it just depends on the city, but, you know, this once in a lifetime.
Yeah, we need to fix our
Yeah,
process.
so that needs to be changed. And, you know, the fee doesn't have to be extraordinary high. It's
No,
just a simple 25 or
Yeah,
$50 fee.
Right.
We don't wanna be like some other
Yeah.
cities,
That's all.
make it difficult for business, that's not what we're looking for.
But I think it is important that we know, like you're saying, like, you know what businesses are operating in the city.
Correct.
And I think especially right now, in this current climate we're in, I mean, there were businesses here, but like, it doesn't look like they're open, but.
Right, yeah,
I
I think
mean,
they're closed out for COVID.
are they closed down just for, you know, COVID? Have they closed permanently? Do we know? How, you know, and if we had this process, I feel like you would know, so.
And to add more to it, so some of the contractors that come in town, you know, it's kind of a mix, but some bring their insurance paperwork and it gets delivered to me and then I track it, but there's no codified process where I know for sure it matches up with the documentation Taylor has. Whereas in my mind, if a business comes and they bring all that all stays in one file with that business. You know, and I think the other benefit to this is if we were to list all the registered businesses on our website, twofold purpose. Number one, we know who's there and who's not
Mhm.
there. But number two, for tourists coming here, they know if they wanna look at restaurants, cause there's no reason you can't set up, you know, the business names by
Sure.
category, genre, whatever. You know, oh, what kind of restaurants are there in Nelsonville? Or what kind of grass mowing, businesses are in Nelsonville? And then boom, there's the name and whatever we
Mhm.
decide to put out there, imagine phone number or something like that.
Yeah, and I think it's important, like, that we're not doing it to be like punitive to businesses. We're not looking, like you said, to make them pay some exorbitant fee every year or whatever. It's because they are paying taxes, they are already paying, you know, into our city infrastructure in that way. But it's about us being able to say, these are our businesses, they are registered properly, for certain ones that, like, according to code now, we should know if they have insurance, and if they're licensed by the state, you know, let's say an HVAC company, right, they're supposed to be licensed by the state.
Absolutely.
By having them register, we know that, we know all those boxes have been checked.
Right,
Yeah.
and also, you know, so that registration fee can go towards advertisement for cities, it can go for signage coming into town. You know, so there's a lot of things that can help the businesses along with that registration fee.
And with the licensure, it helps our citizens too, to say, hey,
Right.
is this guy on the up and up, or is this
Yeah,
some guy coming
exactly.
along just to scan him?
Joe Schmo painting down here.
Yep.
No, I can't tell you that a lady that goes to my church, she got nailed on a porch thing, she had freaking money up front.
Oh, no,
He cut the porch up and then hauled ass.
imagine that, got his money and left.
And we have that happen to a couple of our residents with plumbers in the area.
Yeah.
Not our local guy in Bookville, not him, but ones from Albany and, Logan particularly.
They should be registered in the city.
Yep.
Mhm.
Right.
If you
Yeah.
want to do business in the city, that's when you should
You
register.
had to- okay.
For a company.
I agree.
One more point,
Yeah.
so when we were talking about this earlier today, gentleman brought up, you know, do we include LLCs in that, you know, or, do we also count, what was it, online businesses, or, you know, little businesses, a print shop in a basement, or, you know, those types of things, what are the boundaries, just to take into consideration when you guys are bringing this all
So,
together?
yes, I think those are things we need to look into, like what is, you know, what's considered a business, right? I mean,
If you're making money.
yeah, I mean, an in-home daycare, if they're, you know, doing
So, yes, because there's guidelines that they have to follow.
Yes, they're supposed to be registered and over a certain number of people. You know, a restaurant, a bakery, you know, a t-shirt shop. And I think that, yeah, and I think especially today with like internet sales, right? Like, I don't know, if somebody's selling a bunch of eBay out of their basement, is that a business? I don't know.
Wasn't that brought up in the States before about when they were talking about, you know, selling stuff online, how they would charge a sales tax, how you not charge a sales tax? I think those already went through the courts, I'm not sure what the results were.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that, but I think
Yeah.
those are all like really good questions that we need to
Research and.
like research,
take a look at
figure out. And then, but ultimately, part like you're saying, like if we do this, then you would know, like, okay, I'm looking for an electrician. If I go to the city of Nelsonville page, under businesses registered in the city, here are the 5 electricians that are registered. We're not endorsing them.
Nope.
Right.
We're not endorsing their work.
Just a regular-
We're just saying they are registered, they are a registered vendor, or business in the city. So like, if you hire them, you know that they legally can work here.
Yeah, put a disclaimer at the top.
That's-
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
that's all
not
we're
an
trying to say.
endorsement
Right.
Yeah.
at all.
Right.
But you're right, it is hard to find.
It is, it really is.
I mean, electricians especially.
All
Like
the
somebody,
skilled
you know,
trades.
don't go to college, become an electrician.
I can do electrical work, but I
Yeah.
am not a licensed electrician,
Right,
so.
yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, I mean, I pay the guy that does the licensed electrician that I hired to do stuff, he gets $80 an hour.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Every bit of
cheap.
I
that.
mean,
That would, yeah.
I mean, right? I'm like going, okay. Crazy, so, okay. And did you have the tree commission?
I do you want me to hand it to you, or go through
Or
it?
you can go through it if you,
Okay,
Can you
I'm not
also email it to us, cause Becky was supposed, she wasn't here, I guess, but she was gonna email it to me.
Oh, okay, yeah, all I got dropped off was this, so I'll do my
yeah.
best to scan it
So
in. You
just,
can bear
I know,
with me.
it is hard to read.
You
Yeah.
can just make me a copy before we
Yeah.
leave.
So, this is a list, recommended professional, there was 368, 357, 225 West Washington Street. She says there's dangerous high branches in the maples, high branches in the silver maple. Poplar Street, 336 and 881, 336, the trees need done, so, and then 881, the tree needs gone. This is already on, I'm having a hard time with the notes.
I would say we would have to look at those and continue, you know,
Mhm.
after we
Yeah.
looked at them.
How much we have in the fund?
So I only got a
Well-
couple $100 left in the tree fund for this year. If you guys recall, you either gave me 1,500 or 2,000, I don't
I
remember.
think we gave you
You
$2,000.
know, it's
Could've been
expensive to
$2,000.
have trees trimmed and taken out.
Oh.
Super expensive.
Yes, and we've been skimping, so as an example, we had to have a company come in and cut one up that fell on a house. We couldn't afford for them to do it all, so we just had them cut the high parts down because we didn't have the equipment to do it, and they just left everything as a mess, and then we cleaned up the mess, so.
Mhm.
I only got, like I said, I only got a couple $100 left, maybe a few $100 at the most, I think it's right around 600. So we'll be able to do some of that on here, but also one of the things I talked about with Jason is a lot of the trees that she's, put on here as dead that need to become, or just need to come down. We're gonna go through and see if we can do any of those to save expense. Just the other day, I don't know if anybody saw the city crews up at the base of Hospital Hill there on Canal Street. They took down 4 dead ones that were overhanging there. Citizen that lives right down from there called them in, much appreciated, so we got those cleaned up. So we
Like
do.
on the rivers, on the, like, levee side, or?
No, at the, so the old door run exit.
Yeah.
Between the old door run exit and Hospital Hill.
Okay.
Pretty much dead center, you know, Pine Grove or whatever. Right through there was a handful of dead trees that shot up through the greens, so our guys went down there. They started on the morning that we had the big oil spill, however, they finished the next day, and
Okay.
they got all those trees out of there.
We got a bucket truck.
It only goes 30 feet, so that's the limitation.
So I think one of the things too that I wanna make sure we do, like, as we take trees out though, is also have money set aside to plant new trees. Like, we don't just wanna take trees down.
So if anybody has any info on that, that would be cool, because we were talking about that just here for City Hall. I would love to get a mid-level tree and plant a whole bunch of them just to kind of block in the whole compound area, so it's not
Mhm.
so ugly from the street and the train. And I heard there's grants out there, and then there's a couple other venues, but if anybody has any suggestions out there or knows of anything, please let us know, cause, more than just planting them in the, I'd like to plant trees everywhere, if it makes sense.
Yeah, and I think
Not
it's
on the levee
important.
around Crabtree.
Yeah, I mean, I know this from, being a homeowner, you have to take care of the trees, right? You have to trim them, you have to, do all that, so other trees around them can grow and not die off because, another tree grows next to it and it's bigger and it blocks all the sun and all of that. But with that, especially in a city, and I've seen it on campus at OU too, right? Like where these big old trees, I think at this point, you need to take them out just for safety reasons. But you need to put something back in. You don't just wanna then have, a bunch of streets with no trees on them.
We need an arborist to tell us what trees would not be intrusive on the sidewalks.
Does Hawking still have an arbor program?
They might.
They used to.
When we talked about that before, I thought they said that we had one, or someone that at least works with the city. I just don't remember who it was.
Yeah, anybody
Yeah,
else?
we do have.
Yeah, I think we should look into that and like discuss it, like, we should also maybe have a list of, and can work with our tree commission on this, a list of, like, city-approved trees, right? So
Yeah, that are
things,
intrusive to the sidewalks.
yeah, that aren't intrusive, that don't drop, annoying little berries all over the sidewalk, so that, when you're walking through, you're stepping on little red berries
I've got a
everywhere.
bucket full of Buckeyes at my house.
Yeah, right, oh gosh, I know the Buckeyes.
We
Yeah,
plant
or
those.
dropping, Buckeyes on people's heads as they walk by, but I think it would be nice if we knew that these are good trees to plant, like, even for a homeowner, you wanna take out a tree, here's a good tree to put in its place,
I think that's good information, cause
so,
all I know is I want a tree that's about 12 to 15 feet tall.
Sure.
Bushes out nice. I don't know much more than that, and, just to kind of hide stuff. So
Mhm.
I would love some sort of reference sheet like that.
okay. Alright, well, we'll look into it, I'll see if, I'll check with
It might be
Hawking.
Becky that knows who
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah, I'll check with Becky when she gets back, and then we'll check with Hawking if not, to try to see if they have somebody. I know they used to have that program.
I don't know, as far as the forestry program?
Yeah, do they still have the forestry
They still have a forestry
Okay.
program for, as far as I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, so I feel like we should be able to find that out. So that's all I had. Do you guys have anything else?
Hit all the high points for me.
I know, right?
So, ironically, problem solutions, how I think, right? So
Uh-huh.
we have a current problem, and Chief Fitch actually, brought an idea forward probably 2 weeks ago, and I would just like to plant the seed and see what it looks like. But here's the scenario. As we speak right now, there's a person out there, Tara Hamilton, who is on the sheriff's 12 most wanted list. Currently, she's right next to Kroger's. We know that. We know she's there. We validated her warrants. However, the jail refuses to take her. So even calling the jail back and saying, hey, this is the sheriff's one of the 12 most wanted, they refuse to take her, and they're holding one of their bed spaces for a felon. So knowing that that's a problem, and it's a continuous problem, this just happens to be fresh tonight as we speak, this person's down there. One of the solutions is potentially looking down the road of doing our own short-term jail, like a 15-day holding cell. Is that something that we want to look at in the future, in-house?
Where would it be?
You could enclose the bay area that's in the back of the police department now. You could, what's that?
There's the old water department building.
Street department.
Street department.
But
Yeah,
wouldn't
they'll-
somebody have to be there full-time with them?
So there's a whole business model that goes along with it. It's actually, I don't wanna say money-making business, cause that's not the right term, but it definitely pays for itself in terms of charging, $80 a night, I think is what we pay now, which is more than Motel 6, for bed space. So selling that bed space, X percentage of bed space to other folks, and then keeping a certain amount of bed space for ourselves, there is the potential there for it to pay for itself and provide a service.
So she's on the 12 most wanted. in the
Especially
county,
when-
and it's not a and it's not, she's not wanted for a felony?
I don't know what she's wanted for, she is absolutely on the 12 most wanted, but the jail refused her.
Is this,
We've
is this
been
part-
working on that, haven't we, about them refusing?
Well,
Women
that's-
in
Right.
particular is a problem, they have a low number of beds for women
That's
in
the problem
general.
there, so the women.
For the record, how often do we run into this kind of issue?
Several times a week.
A lot.
A lot, and it's.
I just wanted to
ongoing.
get it out there.
So what I
Yeah.
was wondering, is there an option where we could, I don't know, like, we find them, we serve them with a warrant, and we put an electronic monitoring thing on them, kind of similar that there's a, you know,
What's that gonna do?
I don't know, that's what I'm just thinking.
Back to the jail thing though, I don't think I would want it attached here, we have too many people like coming in to pay their water bills
No, no,
and,
it'd be back here in the fenced-in area.
well, still, that's,
It's a 10-day hold, it's not a prison.
just my opinion, I wouldn't wanna
If
hear,
it
I
was
mean,
secure, I'd consider it.
So let me ask,
I wouldn't.
like, it's Wednesday night, I mean, right, like, we don't even have a holding area, like, where we could have brought her in, held her here overnight, and then, like, there's a, what do I wanna call it, a conference, a court appearance.
Right.
A court appearance, I have very little experience with the criminal world,
Sure.
that she would then do tomorrow, let's say morning or something.
Right now, we have no way, well, I guess your question is, what would it take to get to that point?
Yeah,
Well, currently, we have nothing other than an old office space with some mesh on the windows. So it doesn't have a bathroom and it doesn't meet any
Okay.
code for anything more than just a short amount of time while waiting to take them to jail or court.
The problem is when we do that, hold here, get them to see the judge in Athens, he got some notes.
Is this a post-COVID issue, or is this something that's been ongoing?
Just this one problem with the regional jail here, that they just.
So this didn't just
You know,
start in March or
Yeah,
April?
this has been going on for a while. Especially with women's spaces, it's really, really hard for women's spaces because there's just not enough jail space. I mean, it's easier to get a guy in the regional than it is a woman. So up here at the old prison, Hawkins County is supposed to be turning that into
Mhm.
a women's facility with, I guess, rehab.
yeah.
Partner or whatnot.
Workforce
but-
development, yep.
Yeah, so with that, when COVID hit, because they already went through state approval, already went through the bid process with contractors. I think our company came in second, and, you know, they were still qualifying bids, but, when COVID hit, they stopped state money, so that project just.
Yeah, they got like a big grant from the Appalachian Regional
Mhm.
Commission, like $1.2 million, and then my college is involved
Yeah.
heavily with that, so I've toured it, and it's a great plan.
Mhm.
And part of the plan is, it's for women, because it is so hard to find women,
Bed space, yeah.
bed space.
Mhm.
So what that's supposed to be is part of it will be like, one floor of it will be like incarceration, another floor will be simply, it'll be incarceration, and for those that qualify treatment, a
Right.
whole other floor will be treatment only, and then another part of it is, workforce training. So partnering with Hawking College to do some training to get them to be able to go out and get it
Okay.
So
done.
if that ever opens, would that solve most of our issues?
It would, but we were looking, with renovations and all that, I mean, you were looking, I think, at a 2-year timeline then, and now it's gotten pushed back, so.
Yeah, we don't have that kind of time.
So I think what Chief Fitch was looking at was like a 5-year plan. In
Mhm.
5 years, this is where we kind of want to be, which any development that we do, is you always kind of 5 years ahead and go, this is where we want to be, and this is how we get there. So, you know, there's, Mayor's Court's doing great, so I don't know if some of that money can, because the ones that come in code, they can turn around and that stays with the city, so, you know, a lot of that fees can go to help support that over there, plus the bed space itself.
But if you and Fitch could come up with a rough idea of what you're looking at, I'd like to see it.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
this isn't immediate,
Yeah.
this is just planting the seed, like
Yeah.
Dan said, 5 years down the road, what does that look like?
That's what we want to be
Yeah.
at.
Do you have any other spaces in mind other than the back of the city building though, or is that the only one?
I think he
you
said
thought
the
of?
former,
I mean,
Well, so
or
the street
city.
department's building, and it's already in a fenced-in area by itself.
I think she's meaning anywhere even close.
Like
Oh.
No, I thought you meant attached to the back of the
No,
building.
this is separate.
That was one option. The other option is a street department building, which is 20 feet off the back of that same.
And that's fenced in by itself there.
That would be a better option than
So
City
you
Hall.
gotta, basically, you gotta run plumbing in, which I'm sure we can.
It's already right there.
So you're gonna have to extend the plumbing.
That's it.
For toilets in each of the bays. You have to put in an office space for an officer to maintain the jail. Bars, I mean, you know.
If you look into
basic
it, there
things.
may be
Yeah.
grants for that, you never know.
What does the sheriff say? I mean, 'cause this is a sheriff's warrant.
Yeah, I don't know if Sheriff Smith knows. Sheriff Smith, if you're listening, I'm not sure if you're aware.
I mean, I guess to me, right, and to me, it would be frustrating for our officers to constantly, let's say, like, run into these people, know that there's
Right.
warrants, you know, and you're in this cycle of, we arrest them or whatever, and the jail says no.
Yep.
So they're back out on the street, and maybe,
What if you're the person down on Poplar Street right now, next to Kroger's that sees this female and
Mhm.
calls the police, and now the police says, there's nothing we can do.
Yep.
Mhm.
In my mind, if I'm the citizen, all of you are getting a phone call. All of us, I should
Yeah.
say, are
Sure.
getting a phone call.
And we should.
Yes.
And like you
right,
did.
nothing.
Well, we owe it to our citizens to fix this problem,
Right.
Well,
now
it's got
something
extra
to
bed
do.
space.
to get this thing done.
Well, and I think that's the issue, right, is, and we do hear this from our citizens, is they just get out.
Yep.
They just get, and that's what's happening here, basically, they didn't even just get out, I mean, just couldn't go anywhere.
So, you know what? Vote for the right judge in Athens.
Mhm.
So I can
Well,
tell you.
we've got the right people in place right now to help get this city cleaned up. Let's back them up.
Right, without a doubt.
Let's back them up. Let's figure it out.
I think Mayor's Court is now doing, I think we did like 6,400 last month.
Good. Want to buy some toilets?
That's good,
Yeah,
and it's
so-
good that people understand that we mean business.
Yep.
Yeah.
When you're
exactly.
cited to mayor's court, that it's not a, you know,
Right. So they used to, so if it was a code violation, there was no jail time, basically they would come in and go, I want to transfer to Athens. Because Athens could go, see you. So now that, you know, and then nothing ever happens, they don't get their shit cleaned up.
mhm.
So we'd rather see it cleaned up than just.
Yep. Let's everybody come together and do this thing. So,
All right,
yes, please, Mr. City Manager.
Absolutely.
anything else?
Do we have any comments?
Do we have any comments, Scott?
No.
Do
No
we even
comment.
have any viewers?
We actually did have viewers.
We had like 5. I saw the 5 in there.
Huh, well, they can't ask how good looking I am tonight.
Yeah,
because
I
I'm not-
mean-
Well, they just have to assume that the Terminator
Assume.
is
That's so
top
funny.
notch.
Thanks. Has anybody even watching us already?
Actually, quite a few.
Okay. So,
I don't know, a dozen.
okay.
Cool.
Okay. Well, I think that's it. I think Justin, at one point you said you wanna look at, ATV.
Yeah,
issues.
I don't
Okay,
have.
Not yet, but yeah.
Not yet, yeah.
It's getting
Com-
winter, it's getting to be
Coming
winter
up, yes.
time.
We'll need things to talk about in the winter time.
Yes,
too.
we will. So, all right, well, thank you, everybody. I will adjourn the meeting at, I don't know what time it is, 7:49.